Hello everyone, what's up? It's me again, Junkomonster3, and what do you know? I'm back with a new video, and like you can probably tell, this is a very delayed video because this is going to be the video for the Horrorthon of 2022, uh, where I basically go through all the films that I've watched during the month of October, and at the end of the video, I'm going to tell you which ones that I enjoy the most, like the top five. So this is sort of like a combination between top five of the month and the Horrorthon in one exact same video. So before this video gets any longer, I'm just going to continue and go through them chronologically in the way that I watched them. So yeah, so basically from day 1 to day 31. So yeah. So at day 1, I watched two films. The first one I watched was Death Mosque from 1998. This is a film that really surprised me, mainly because of the actors in it. This has Linnea Quigley in it. I think she's probably the most known actress in this film, and she is really amazing in this film. I think this is one of her best performances, like of all time, really. Um, and it has a little bit similarities with Pumpkinhead in a way. And it's a very strange way to say Pumpkinhead because there's basically this witch in the swamp, which the main antagonist goes to after a while. So yeah, I'm not going to spoil too much other than that. But I mean, this is a really entertaining little like low budget horror film from the late '90s. So yeah, Death Mosque. And the second one I watched was Dark Universe from 1993 with none other than Joe Estevez, and you know it's going to be She's Fest whenever you see his name on the in the credits. This is just a terrible film from start to finish. Sure, the creature itself looks quite interesting, but the problem is it looks way too much like the creature from the Alien films, or like the alien from the Alien films. So it's kind of like a rip-off film in a way, but most of the film just takes place out in like this in the woods, and it's just so boring and it's just tedious. And apparently, most of the film was shot in the backyard of Fred Olen Ray's house. So that there you go. Yeah, I despised this. So yeah, can't recommend that. And day 2, I only watched one film, and that film was The Sadist from 1963. This is another film that has the same kind of issue like Dark Universe had, and the main problem is the location. Most of the film, I would say at least 90 to 95% of the film takes place at this like abandoned gas station in a way. It's not abandoned because there's bad guys in the gas station and whatnot, but or junkyard. But it's just yeah tedious and boring, and even though the actors really try their best, it just couldn't save the film. Overall, it's a very mediocre film in general. I would say I can't say that I hated it, but it's one of those mediocre films that you kind of forget about after a while. So yeah. And day 3, I watched two films. The first one was Inquisition from 1977, and this is directed by Paul Naschy, the Spanish guy. I think he directed numerous of films and starred in very many horror films. This is the very first film by him that I've actually seen, and it's quite fitting because this is the very first film that he also directed. Um, Quite interesting, like little like period, kind of interesting when this takes place because I think this takes place like back in like the witch era in a way, like the 777 or something. I'm not really sure, but when they were witch hunters basically. So this is quite interesting. Not too bad, not too good either. I still think it's an entertaining film, but I've seen better. So yeah, Inquisition. The next one I watched was The House by the Lake, which is also known as Death Weekend. This has very many similarities with films such as Lost House on the Left and I Spit in Your Grave, and among those like the exploitation genre in general. This one really, I really appreciated this film more than I thought, because the main bad guys in this film, they are really a bunch of assholes and really I wouldn't say disrespectful. But it's just they are just awful people. That's what I wanted to say, which makes it even more fun when you get the one of the lead characters that has to fight back for her life against against these against these scum basically. Um, yeah, really entertaining. I think it's a shame that the version that I have is like a Swedish DVD, which has a very bad picture quality and quite bad audio quality as well. But I think that was the very first film, very first release that this film ever got on DVD in the DVD format, because before that it was only released on VHS. So yeah, there you go. But yeah, I really appreciated Death Weekend in general. So yeah, and this is directed by the same guy who made Killer Party, I believe. So yeah. So then we get to day 4. I watched one film, and that was Tucker and Dale versus Evil. This is one film that I've had in the collection for years, but I've never seen it. Very entertaining, like horror comedy film, which I just wish that I could have watched this earlier, because this is probably one of my new favorite ones, actually, to be honest. Memorable characters, they're funny and they're entertaining, and it's just charming and bloody and gory at the same time, just like I like it to in these type of films. But this just seems like this is really where it just became obvious to me that there were just too many like horror comedies that were showed up out in the early 2010s and whatnot, because it just feels like they kind of died off after a while, because most of those films that came like after 2011 felt like they were quite bad, to be honest. But those are just the ones that I've seen. So yeah. But anyway, Tucker and Dale vs. Evil was that one that I watched. Day 5, I watched one film, and the film was called The Hunt from 2020. This one started out really, really well. I would say it kind of felt like a battle royale type of storyline in the first like maybe 10 minutes or so. But then they kind of scrapped that whole idea. It felt like, at least. And it's just that the main character in the film, I just didn't care for her. I mean, her performance was good, but I just couldn't care less for her character. There were some characters in the very beginning of the film that I felt, oh, I would love to see us follow these 3 people. But spoilers, they get killed off like very early in the film, like after 5 or 10 minutes. So I thought that was really, really irritating. But yeah, overall, it's still an alright film. I just felt that we could have focused on some other character in the film instead. So, but anyway, that's The Hunt. At day 6, I watched 2 films. The first one I watched was The Screaming Skull from 1958. Very boring, very tedious film. None of the storyline didn't make any goddamn sense, and yeah, just still some atmospheric bits from time to time, but overall it's just way too tedious for me, and it's only over like 1 hour long as well, which is just, it just felt like it was longer than that. So but yeah, can't really recommend that one. The next one I can't really recommend either. The film is called Necropolis from 1986. I believe this was released by Full Moon on DVD. Might have gotten some new fancy Blu-ray, I'm not really sure, but this is one of those that have like a missed opportunity to it, because it's about this witch that gets like cursed in a way, and then she get like resurrected in the 80s, and she breaks habit basically, and just kills off people from time to time, and needs to kill off the ancestors, the offspring. I'm not sure how to say it, but the people that are related to those people that kind of like put the curse on her to begin with. So really interesting storyline. Just felt like it's just the acting is absolutely atrocious in this. That's just my personal opinion, but yeah, I can't recommend that one just because of that. But it has some really entertaining creature effects in it. I just wish the creature effects could have been in any other film, or like blood and gore effects, whatnot. So yeah, Necropolis. Yeah, didn't care too much for that one. And now I've almost been mumbling for 10 minutes, so I need to speed up a little bit. Then I watched, day 7, I watched 3 films. The first one was Possum. Very creepy, really visual. I really like the visuals in this one. Possum 2018, by the way. The creature, or like the weird puppet thing in this, is really freaky. And it just comes down to the fact that I felt like it was a little too long. And could have probably settled for an hour, 1 hour and 10 minutes or so. And some of the acting was good, but it just felt like the characters should have had more depth to them for me to appreciate it a little bit more. But yeah, still an entertaining film. So yeah, Possum. Speaking of entertaining, the next one I also made a review of. So if you haven't seen that one, you can watch that instead of me mumbling about that. But the next one I watched was Sultan, the Hound of Dracula, or Dracula's Dog, from 1977, which I made a review of, which I really appreciated because of how incredibly cheesy it was, and some of the dog attack scenes were really entertaining to watch. So, um, yeah, Dracula's Dog, also known as Sultan and the Hound of Dracula. I can really recommend that one. The next one, not so much. The next one is called Trespassers from 2018. What happens when you have a bunch of douchebags in a film? Well, you usually have that in some sort of like horror films in general, but I can't even say that the death scenes were very spectacular or entertaining to begin with, or not very creative at least. So, and it takes way too long for anything to really happen. I mean, I usually don't have any problems with that if the film has really good atmosphere and good cinematography, but it's just way too tedious, and it takes at least like 1 hour before anything really starts happening. And when it starts happening, you don't really care anymore. Very mediocre. Can't really recommend it, to be honest. So unless you're a diehard fan of douchebag films, I'm not very sure. But anyway, yeah, Trespassers. Then at day 8, I watched. Let's see, I watched 2 films. The first one was Succubus Hellbent from 2007. I think this felt more like a early 2000s or late 90s film because of some of the music in it and some of the way the characters behaved. It just felt like this. Whoa! I'm from the 90s, dude. Like that type of acting in a way. Couldn't care less for any of the characters. I really did not like this one at all. Yeah, can't recommend it. It's just boring. It's just unfortunate. It seems like I watched a whole lot of garbage this year. So, but yeah, that's how it goes sometimes. Then I watched a film by none other than David A. Pryor. His killer Bigfoot type film called Night Claws from 2012. And I have to say, this has to be the very worst David A. Pryor film that I've ever watched. And I'm a big fan of David A. Pryor in general. He usually makes some really entertaining, low budget B, cheesy action or cheesy horror films in general. But this one I just felt was too tedious, and the creatures themselves, you don't see too much of them until the very end, and when you see them, you just laugh your ass off because of how bad it looks. Yeah, I can't recommend this one, Night Claws. Then day 9, I watched one film, and that film was Dark Places from 1974. Once again, we're stuck in the mediocre realm of this list. It just feels like so many films that I've watched was mediocre at best. I only gave Dark Places a 5 out of 10. Very tedious, boring film to watch. Even though it has Christopher Lee in it, it just feels like they wasted his character, and he has nothing to do because the script or like the storyline is just not there. Yeah. And then day 10, I watched 2 films. The first one was a film called For the Sake of Vicious from 2020. This one I really, really enjoyed. It's about this girl who works like the night shift at like a hospital, and I think it's supposed to take place on Halloween as well. So she ends her shift and goes back home, and of course she gets assaulted, or not assaulted, but she gets attacked by like a bunch of like hooligans or whatnot on Halloween, and or criminals, I would say, and it's just a whole lot of mayhem and chaos in this, which I really appreciate. The blood and gore effects are top notch, at least for a low budget film like this. Some of the storyline doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I didn't care too much for that because I really appreciated everything else in the film. So yeah, For the Sake of Vicious. The next one I watched, I also made a review of the film Relative Fear from 1994. If you haven't seen my review, check that one out instead of me mumbling here about it again. Enjoyable film. Sort of like a killer kid film, like Mikey in a way. So yeah. Then we have day 11. I watched Demonic Toys by not by Charles Band. I think he of course he produced this because he has a big thing for dolls in general, and we already know that. But yeah, Demonic Toys. I really appreciated this film more than I thought I would do. So. Oopsie Daisy is quite irritating in this film. This little like main doll, or the main bad guy doll in a way. Yeah, that doll is really annoying. More annoying than scary or funny to me. But overall, though, I think it's an entertaining film. So yeah, there you go. Demonic Toys, 1992. Then I watched I Bury the Living from 1958. Very atmospheric, interesting storyline, like interesting idea for a film. I'm not going to spoil it if you haven't seen it, but it's about this like funeral director in a way that has to. I'm not going to spoil it. I'm just going to leave it at that. But it's really entertaining film. This is directed by Albert Band as well, the same guy who directed Sultan and the Hound of Dracula. So, yeah, and Albert Band is of course the father of Charles Band. So there you go. Anyway, the next one I watched day 12 was the film called Teen Vamp from 1989. What to say about this one? I mean, it seems like half of the film is a full blown comedy, and the half of the film is like a real horror film. It's not really any mix in between. It just feels like the first half is like a comedy film, the last half is like a horror film. I really, really appreciated the horror aspects of this film. I didn't care too much for the comedy in the film. And that's the reason why I gave it a 5 out of 10, because half of the film is pretty damn entertaining, half of the film is just, didn't care for that. So yeah, Teen Vamp. And day 13, I watched two films. The first one I watched was Kingdom of the Spiders from 1977. If you suffer from arachnophobia, do not watch this film. There's so many like tarantulas and spiders in this film that would make you really, really like, ooh, that is creepy. If I would have watched this when I was like 7 years old, I would have had nightmares forever. The ending, for those of you who have seen it, it is a really great and awesome ending to me, or at least atmospheric and creepy. But yeah, entertaining performances as well, and great like practical effects. I just feel very sorry for the spiders in the film, because it's quite obvious they used real spiders for this, and there's so many spiders that gets killed off in quite violent ways. So yeah, but still, I really I really, really thought this film was entertaining in general. So yeah, King of the Spiders. And then I watched The Lost Skeleton of Cadavra from 2001. This one I did not care for at all. I thought most of the actors were really bad and the characters were obnoxious, and the storyline, I just didn't understand the storyline at all. Yeah, can't recommend that one at all. Speaking of not recommending at all, the next two films I can't recommend either. So I watched three films at day 14. The first one was Devil's Story from 1986. This has a really amazing cover art to it, with this like weird like World War II like soldier holding like a weird like spaz shotgun. Um, Nothing makes sense in this film. It's just random things happening, and whenever something happens, it's just boring. And so at least some of the blood and gore effects are entertaining and cool. But once again, like with very many other films on this list, I wish they could have had that in another film. So, yeah, there you go. Yeah, I can't recommend Devil's Story at all. The next one was To The Sleep of Death from 1980. Boring garbage. That's all I'm gonna say about that. I need to speed up, so that's another reason why I just feel like I don't want to waste any more time on really bad ones. So yeah. And the next one I watched was a film called Horror House. I think this has another title to it. The Haunted House of Horror, yeah, from 1969. Interesting, has some problems to it. It's an alright film. I can't say that I hated it, can't say that I loved it either. I give it a 5 out of 10, so yeah. Then at day 15, I watched Inseminoid from 1981 by Norman J. Warren. I expected this to be really, really bad, but maybe that's the reason also why I appreciated it as much as I did, because I've been told before that, oh, this is a really bad film, but I'm like, yeah, what's wrong with this? It has a nice atmosphere, and the characters are all right, and the creature and blood effects are top notch. What's there not to like? I mean, it's quite obvious it's like a alien ripoff film, but it's a charming one at that. So, yeah, Inseminoid. Then at day 16, I watched a film by Wes Craven. This is one of the very last Wes Craven films that I had to watch before I can say that I've watched all of his filmography. I haven't watched what's the film called, Schiller, I believe, which was also a made-for-TV film from the 80s. I think that's the only other horror film that I haven't seen by him. But anyway, his film that I watched this time around was Night Visions from 1990. Made-for-TV film, serial killer type film. And you know, if it's a made-for-TV film and it's a serial killer film, you know you're not going to get any like blood or gore effects, and and most of the characters are tedious and boring. It just feels like I'm repeating myself over and over again about all these films, but that's just what it comes down to. But anyway, Night Visions, yeah, one of the weakest films that I've ever seen by Wes Craven, to be honest, which is unfortunate. Um, then day 17, I watched a slasher film from the early 80s called The Ghost Dance from 1982. The main problem I would say with this is the lighting. It's just almost impossible to see what's going on. This is definitely a film that would probably benefit from a restoration, or like a by Vinegar Syndrome or 88 Films or any other like company that can release this on Blu-ray, because yeah, the VHS transfer, I'm not really sure if it's the VHS itself or if it's just the film itself that just has a really bad lighting to it. But yeah, overall it's quite mediocre, but still an entertaining like plot or like interesting idea for a slasher film. So still all right, I would say. Then at let's see, day 18, I watched Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1956. What's there not to say that I've already been said about this? Really entertaining, atmospheric, good acting. Yeah, I don't really have too many complaints about it. Day 19, I watched 3 films. The first one was the remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which came out in 1978. With Donald Pleasence, and not Donald Pleasence, what am I talking about? Donald Sutherland. And I think it's mainly because of him and his performance in this that I really enjoy this film. I actually like this one slightly more than the original one, which doesn't really happen very often when it comes to remakes in general. But this one I really appreciated. So yeah, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. The next one I watched was Evil Toons. From 1992 by Fred Olen Ray. You know it's gonna be sleazy. You know it's gonna be bad. You know it's gonna be stupid and retarded. It seems like they kind of knew what they were in for when they made this film. So it still has its charm. I would say it's still a bad film, but it's still entertaining in a so bad it's good type of way. I would say so. Yeah, Evil Toons. The next one I also thought would say goes in the same category as Evil Toons, like a so bad it's good type of film. Monster from Bikini Beach from 2018. With a title like that, it's like, oh, this is gonna be awesome and great and chaos, which it kind of is. So the creature is great, especially for a low budget production like this. So yeah, Monster from Bikini Beach, entertaining. Now I've been talking for almost half an hour, so I really need to speed up. Day 20, I watched Pleasures of the Damned, another micro budget film. This one, though, I would say skip this one. I did not like this one at all. I didn't like any of the characters. I didn't like the environment. There's barely anything that I liked. Some of the blood and gore effects were entertaining, but that's about it. So yeah, Pleasures of the Damned. Can't recommend that one. Day 21, I watched 2 films. A Reflection of Fear from 1972. Ugh, tedious and boring and obnoxious characters. I hated this film. Can't recommend. Next one I watched was The House That Jack Built. I was disappointed in this film. Not disappointed. I liked the film itself, but I was disappointed by the fact that so many people had said before, "Oh, this is so disturbing, and this is so disgusting, and this is one of the most disturbing films of all time." Like, really? You think this is disturbing? I mean, I've seen plenty of other films that are like at least 10 times worse than this. And I can't really understand which particular scene that I think are really like disturbing. I can't really understand that. So, but overall, I think the film itself is good. I just feel like it's a little too long, way too long, I would say. But I really appreciated the ending. The ending was kind of symbolic in a way, and I really enjoy that. Yeah, still a good film, I would say. It just feels like it's way too long. So yeah. Then day 22. I watched 3 films. First one was Redneck Zombies from 1989. Entertaining trauma film, stupid, retarded, fun. Yeah, enjoyable. And then I watched Rocktober Blood from 1984. It has some tedious parts to it, but I really like the slasher elements of this film. Maybe that's the reason why I appreciate it as much as I did. And this is another one of those heavy metal horror films, which I really enjoy. Along with other films such as Black Roses, Rock and Roll Nightmare, Hard Rock Zombies, Trick or Treat. I mean, those films, yeah, really like those films. So if you like those type of films, I think you'd probably enjoy October Blood as well. So yeah. Then I watched Clown Motel from 2019. This one is another one of those that are so bad it's good, retarded as fun. I mean, it's just silly clowns going around killing people. I mean, some of the clowns are supposed to be scary, I believe, but they are way more funnier than scarier, I would say. It's so bad it's good. It's entertaining trash, entertaining garbage. So yeah. Then I rewatched, on the day 23, I rewatched Hatchet. I've been mentioning this film so many times on my channel, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. I think that's probably the only rewatch in this entire Horrorthon this time around. So after that, I day 24, day 25, and day 26. I didn't watch any films because I was hospitalized. So yeah, there you go. But when I came back, I watched. Let's see, three. Oh my god, I watched. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 films on day 27. 3 films is by the same director, William Griffey. I can't really pronounce his name, but Mako, The Jaws of Death from 1976, Sting of Death from 1966, and Death Curse of Tartu from 1966. I would say I really enjoyed Death Curse of Tartu the most among these, even though it has the lowest rating, which is quite interesting. Mako, The Jaws of Death is quite interesting and entertaining for what it is, really. But Sting of Death, I thought was really boring and really, really dull. So yeah, that's the only one that I would say right away that I didn't enjoy too much at all. So yeah. The next 2 films that I watched during day 27 was, the first one was called Bone Eater from 2007. And this is one of those, I think, sci-fi films or like asylum films, I believe. And you're in for some really terrible CGI and creature effects when it comes to those films in general. So yeah, really bad. I didn't enjoy this one bit, really. So yeah. But then I watched a Godfrey Ho action, horror, crime, fantasy, weird-ass film. It's going to be weird when it's Godfrey Ho. Crocodile Fury from 1988. Yeah, the reason why this was entertaining was because it's quite obvious they had at least had at least 2 or 3 films spliced together, which just made the film that not make any sense. So, but really entertaining garbage. So yeah, Crocodile Fury. Day 28, I watched 2 films. The first one was another slasher from the 80s, Terror on Alcatraz from 1987. Once again, a really boring film. It just feels like I've run out of really good films from the 80s when it comes to slashers. Yeah, I can't recommend that one at all, even though I really like the locations and setting in the film. Then I watched The Newly Deads from 1988. This is released by Troma, I believe. This is quite interesting and not too bad, not too good. An entertaining little slasher film. So yeah, 6 out of 10 I gave that one. So yeah. Then day 29 was the first one I watched was It Follows, which I think most people said this is one of the best films in the last decade or so. I wouldn't say the very best. It's a good film, but I think it's a little bit overrated. But I really appreciated the idea that this film had. So the idea itself was quite interesting. It just felt like a weird mix between like The Ring and Boogeyman in a way. I know that sounds really strange, like a weird comparison, but that's what I got from it. So still entertaining though. It Follows, yeah. And then, speaking of a creative film, the next one I watched was Murder by Phone from 1982, also known as Bells, I believe. This is seriously about a serial killer killing people through telephone calls. If that's not entertaining for you, I don't really know what. Really entertaining one at that. So this is definitely a film that I would say need a DVD or Blu-ray release. Unless it already has one, I'm not really sure. But yeah, Murder by Phone, really entertaining one. Day 30, I watched Day of the Reaper by Tim Ritter. This is the very first film he directed. I think it was only like 15 or 16 years old when he directed this. It's just a shame though, because I think most of this film, I would say if you like Tim Ritter, go ahead and watch Killing Spree instead. Killing Spree is amazing, but this one was just obnoxious and boring. So, yeah, Day of the Reaper, 1984. Then at day 31, the last day, I watched 3 films. The first one was Ernest Scared Stupid. Uh, Among all the Ernest films, I would say this is one of the better ones. This one and Ernest Goes to Jail, I would say, are the best ones. I have yet to watch Ernest Saves Christmas, but I'm probably gonna get a hold of that and see if I can watch it during this time of the year and during the Christmas holidays and whatnot. So yeah, but yeah, I really appreciated Ernest Scared Stupid. I really enjoyed that one. So yeah. Then I watched a film called Blood Bride from 1982. This is also known as Death Nun, apparently. I watched this mainly because of the cover art on IMDb that I saw. That I thought, oh my god, like a weird skeleton nun going on killing people. Plot twist that does not happen in the film. Yeah, really boring film. Tedious. I would not recommend this to anyone. Really boring. I gave that one a 2 out of 10. And then the very last film I watched for the Horrorthon was The Killer Eye from 1991, directed by David Dakota, and it's going to be some shirtless dudes in the film. This is one that is so extremely bad that it gets kind of funny. I wouldn't say I recommend it to any other like hardcore horror fan in general, but I would say if you like so bad it's good type of films, you might enjoy this one to a certain degree. So, but anyway, that's The Killer Eye. Now I've been mumbling for 31 minutes, so I need to speed up when I'm going to tell you which films that I enjoy the most among these. So I'm going to go from number 5 up to number 1, and number 1 being the one that I appreciated the most or that I liked the most during the Horrorthon. So yeah, at number 5 we have Kingdom of the Spiders. Yeah, really entertaining. Then at number 4 we have Relative Fear, the Killer Kid film. At number 3 we have The House by the Lake, also known as Death Weekend. At number 2 we have Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the remake from 1978. And at number 1 we have Tucker and Dale versus Evil. So those are the top 5 films, or the best films that I watched during the Horrorthon. So there you go. Now I've been taking up like 33 minutes of your life, but yeah, still I hope you enjoy this particular video. I know I've been absent from the YouTube for quite some time. I'm gonna try to get a hold of more. I'm gonna try to make more review videos, or top 10 lists, or update videos. I know for a fact that I could probably make another update video, but I'm gonna save that one at least after Christmas, I believe. So we'll see how that goes. But anyway, hope you enjoyed, and yeah, stay tuned for the next video. So yeah, bye bye.